Welcome to the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for being with us. One of Ohio's oldest institutions of higher learning just turned 200 years old this month, Case Western Reserve University. Its founding dates back to Western Reserve College in Hudson, Ohio in 1826, named after the region which was then known as the Western Reserve of Connecticut. In the 1800s, Northeast Ohio's population was growing, and the Industrial Revolution was creating opportunities for technical and scientific advancement in Cleveland, with the help of philanthropists like Leonard Case Jr., whose secret trust created part of Case Western as we know it today. Fast forward to 2026, and colleges and universities across the country are facing a completely different environment, from threats of federal and state funding cuts to major enrollment decline as Ohio's population drops. We're also seeing changing attitudes over whether a four-year university is worth the cost of admission at a time where the rapid growth of artificial intelligence is disrupting previously lucrative career paths. Several longstanding universities in Ohio have had to merge, severely cut staff and programs, or close completely as they deal with financial uncertainty and debt. Today, we'll start by talking to Case Western Reserve University President Dr. Eric Kahler about higher education today and how he plans to not only weather the current storm, but lead on a global level, as Case Western was just recently named one of the top 30 colleges in the world by Time Magazine. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We appreciate it, and congratulations on the acknowledgement from Time Magazine.
It's really nice when a major news organization has an algorithm that gets what we think is the right answer, which ranks us among the very best universities in the country and the world. It's very satisfying when that happens.
We'll be talking about more on that in just a moment. Later in the show, we will travel back in time. We'll honor a moment that happened at Case Western's predecessor, the Western Reserve College in Hudson. We'll learn about a famous speech given there by abolitionist Frederick Douglass back in 1854, which was actually quoted by President Kahler in his inauguration speech 4 years ago. And we'll end today's show with our bi-weekly food series, The Menu, produced in partnership with Cleveland Magazine, where we'll be talking about fish fries. It is that time of year. First up, let's hear what's happening with Case Western Reserve University. We do have Eric with us, Eric Kahler. And if you want to join the conversation, you can give us a call at 866-578-0903, or you can send us an email at soi@ideastream.org, or a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Now, Eric, you talked about that algorithm, getting it right, and recognizing Case Western Reserve University among the top 30 colleges in the world. What do you think has made Case Western stand the test of time 200 years later?
Well, it's a combination of things. First off, we deliver value to our students. Our students emerge from their experience with us prepared to be successful. And the stories that our alums tell are really remarkable. They've done incredible things with their careers. Secondly, in addition to producing people, we produce ideas and we produce inventions, we produce cures. And the impact that we've had on medical science, on the care of patients, is really remarkable. So when you line those two things up, our contributions to the intellectual life of the country and the world, and the ability to create truly remarkable students who go out and succeed, makes us successful.
Mm-hmm. We talked a bit over the last week here at The Sound of Ideas and IdeaStream Public Media about artificial intelligence. We had a week-long series called IdeaStream Explores Artificial Intelligence. We mentioned that in the introduction. You have a background in chemical engineering. What do you think about artificial intelligence, and what's that doing to the landscape of higher education today?
Well, it's really a combination of terrifying and exhilarating, right? I mean, nobody knows what this is going to bring, but it's going to bring a lot. And so our challenge as an institution, which I think we're meeting really well, is to get in front of this, to teach our students to use this as a tool, to use this as a collaborator, to use this as leverage to advance their own learning and their own impact. We have over 100 classes at the university that involve artificial intelligence. We're pushing through an artificial intelligence major. This requires approval by the state and other people, so it's not a quick process, but we're pushing it hard. We have a great partnership with Microsoft, and the head of their educational activities was on campus recently, and he said that it would be unethical for him to hire somebody who wasn't fluent in artificial intelligence, and we think that's true. So we've got to equip our students to move that forward. At the same time, and the other part of our mission, using AI for science is incredibly important. There have already been 2 Nobel Prizes in 2024 awarded, one for basically the invention of AI, and secondly for using it to fold proteins. These are big deals. So our folks have to be not only fluent, but writing the next generation of applications of this important technology.
So we've talked now about the present day and a little bit about the future, just a little bit there. Let's take it back now. So Case Western Reserve University has a storied history here in Ohio. We would like to talk about the evolution. Western Reserve College was founded in 1826. Along the way, Leonard Case Jr.'s Case School of Applied Science came into being, which got folded into the mix. So talk to us about the journey to Case Western Reserve University becoming what it is today.
Right. So it is a series of merges and evolutions. A variety of institutions have really come and gone. The final coalescence in 1967 between Western Reserve University and Case Institute of Technology gave us our present day institution. And while I don't think we're going to merge or fracture anytime soon, it just represents an evolution. And it's kind of an interesting thing to think about because now we talk about so much the intersection of the arts and the humanities and technology. And that's exactly what Case Western Reserve became in 1967. The strong liberal arts and medicine portion of Western Reserve University merging with the technology of the Case Institute to create a modern university that, so to speak, walks on both legs and advances both in our humanistic mission and our technology mission.
When we think about modern times, I want to talk a bit about the challenges facing universities right now as we remind our audience that we are talking about the 200th birthday of Case Western Reserve University and the challenges that have existed in the past, the challenges that exist today, and the vision for the future. The number to call to be a part of that conversation is 866-578-0903. You can also send us an email at soi@ideastream.org if you want to be a part of that conversation, especially if there are any students or alumni listening today. We would love to hear from you, or anyone who maybe is considering taking a course or has a family member who took a course at Case Western Reserve University. Now, I ran through a list of challenges in the beginning facing universities. I want to get a little bit more specific about the impact here in Ohio. South Euclid's Notre Dame College closed in 2024. That was after 102 years in operation. Eastern Gateway Community College closed last year. Lourdes University in Northwest Ohio is closing at the end of this year, and that particular institution cited, quote, mounting financial pressures driven by declining enrollment, rising costs, and a funding model that is increasingly unsustainable. Is Case Western feeling any of these challenges or maybe different ones that you can share about today?
Well, the short answer is no. The longer answer is that I'm a realistic optimist, and I am that about Case Western Reserve. Certainly, there is a demographic cliff in the United States, but this year we had 41,000 students apply for 1,550 slots. So we don't think we're going to run out of students anytime soon. We have students from all 50 states and from 111 countries in the world. We're an internationally important university, as the Time rankings allude to. So we're in a different place than the schools that you mentioned. At the same time, we're incredibly careful about our budget. We're incredibly careful about the spending that we do. We try to make very significantly strategic decisions about where we invest. We keep an eye on this for sure, but I don't feel like we're in any danger of running out of resources or students anytime soon.
Let's talk a bit about enrollment specifically tied to the current administration. We know that the Trump administration has put restrictions on universities involving international visas. This is something that affected Case Western Reserve University last year. We know 4 international students at that time had their visas revoked. So what does that picture look like today when it comes to international student involvement at Case Western Reserve?
Well, we have traditionally had about 19 or 20% of our undergraduate population international students, the bulk of them from China. And that enrollment has really fallen off the cliff. It's dropped by applications have dropped by 75%. So that reflects not only the foreign policy decisions of this administration, which we can talk about if you'd like, but also a decision of people, families in China, to not prepare their students for international study as rigorously as they did. And part of that actually echoes back to the COVID epidemic. But the fact is that our China enrollment has dropped remarkably. Again, it was small last year. It'll be small this year. So I think over a 4-year period of time, our international enrollment will probably drop from the 19 to 20% historical value to probably on the order of 10%, which I think is a loss for two reasons. One is that it mutes our ability to influence activities in the world. These students typically, if they go back to their home country, are going to be in leadership positions, are going to be effective in business or in politics or in academics. We'll miss that leverage. We'll miss that ability to have these significant people talk about the power of their time in the United States. That's a loss for the country. It's also a loss for American students who don't have that exposure to people from different cultures. Again, you don't want your first interaction with someone from China to be on your first business trip to Shanghai. You want to understand this as you're moving through your education. And so we're going to lose that as well. So it's really a double-edged cut to, frankly, the future of America.
Staying on the issue of enrollment here for just a moment, we got a message from an audience member, Richard, who has a question about the enrollment cliff. And the enrollment cliff refers to a forecasted sharp decline in the number of U.S. high school graduates beginning around this year, and this is due to birth rates dropping following the 2008 financial crisis. So, big picture, Richard asks, universities knew about the cliff in enrollment for over a decade. Why were they so slow to react?
That's a great question, and I can't answer for the industry of higher education, but I can tell you for the places that I've been associated with, we're not on the margin of these enrollments. So as I mentioned, we had 41,000 applications, which is 2,000 more than we had last year, and so we're actually seeing ourselves compete effectively against the demographic cliff. And again, we're an internationally attractive institution, so that helps us move forward as well. Other institutions have had a variety of strategies. Some of them wanted to enroll more athletes as a way to grow their student body. That didn't work very well for some. You mentioned one going out of business in Northwest Ohio. But for us, we rely on a large catchment and an international reputation that brings us students.
Let's talk about the research funding piece. We talked about threats of decreases in state and federal funding, some of that tied to the presidential administration. Is that impacting Case Western?
Oh, my goodness, yes. So it has been a very challenging 12-month period for us. The proposed reductions in federal funding were stunning. Fortunately, as the funding bills moved through Congress, essentially none of those cuts were realized. The NIH, the National Institutes of Health budget, actually increased by 1% or so. So the cuts did not materialize. There was also a proposed reduction in the so-called indirect cost rates, which are the reimbursement for expenses that the university spends in execution of the direct costs of research. Those were challenged in court and ultimately mooted by the congressional legislation and the appropriation bills. So we've moved through that lacuna, if you will, but it's still scary. There are still activities that OMB can make that could impact us in a very negative way. And again, we're seeing the reactions of an administration has some philosophical challenges with things that universities are perceived to teach and be, and have reacted by cutting funding for cancer clinical trials, which seems a little odd to me, but it is what happened and has been resolved, at least in the short term, in a way that enables our research to move forward. But it has taken a cut, particularly reductions in diversity. Grants have cost us millions of dollars. Not a significant percentage, but important to those engaged in that work.
Speaking of the references this administration has made to diversity, equity, and inclusion programming, how specifically has Case Western dealt with that? I think there have been some changes made at the university.
Yeah, we remain in compliance with federal laws and with the directives that that the administration has issued. That has caused us to pivot some of our programs, but in a way that really just becomes more inclusive. So programs are very explicitly welcoming people from all sectors of our community into them, and has brought together people from different backgrounds in a good way. We firmly believe in the power of diversity. We believe that good ideas come from many sources, and we celebrate and enable those. But we are in compliance with the federal directives.
We did get a specific question in from an audience member who would prefer not to be identified and has talked about what they say is Case Western University ending an effort to support some of the disadvantaged and underrepresented students at Case Western University. So I'd like to ask a couple things that are raised in this question here. The leadership team, can you talk about the demographics of your leadership team and how that works to represent what Case Western University is hoping to bring forward into the next years?
Well, we have a fairly diverse leadership team. We always work hard to bring the best people, and we're very open to folks from any demographic that brings a set of skills that we need. So, again, we're looking at a dean's team, for example, that has our dean of dental medicine has just stepped down, African American. Our vice president for engagement is African American. We have about an equal distribution between men and women on the senior leadership team. So we're always looking for diverse ideas, diverse people from different backgrounds. But I'm comfortable with where we are.
One more question on this topic here. There was an orientation program that helped first generation college students, and that program is no longer in existence at Case Western. Can you talk about that?
Sure. That's a program that was targeted to bring individuals to campus based on their ethnicity, and that is illegal. Under the current administration's rules and regulations. They've made it very clear that those programs can no longer continue to be offered. So rather than jeopardize hundreds of millions of dollars of federal funding, we have discontinued that program.
Let's talk about the future of Case Western Reserve University. 200 years in, what do you think is the most valuable thing that the university provides to the community, and what do you hope to flourish in the coming years?
So I frequently say there is no great American city that doesn't have a great research university. And our job for the city of Cleveland and for Northeast Ohio is to be that great American research university. And we try to deliver on that every single day. And I think we do. You look at the innovation pipeline, we're opening a new interdisciplinary science and engineering building on the Case Quad in October, an important part of our birthday celebration. That then feeds our Think Box, which is an important makerspace on our campus, open to the public, and then into our incubation site at 11,000 Cedar Avenue. So we have a pipeline from invention to innovation to product at the university. That's critically important for the city of Cleveland and for the region. So that innovation pipeline, we're growing. Our ability to train medical professionals to care for the people of Northeast Ohio, critically important. And of course, our ability to produce educated individuals in all fields and all walks of life, I think, improves the quality of life in the city, in the region, and the world dramatically. So those are just the things that we do every single day.
Let's talk about the changing attitudes towards higher education across the country, not just here in Northeast Ohio. There are a lot of people who are thinking about whether it's worth the cost of admission to possibly attend a four-year university like Case Western, like many here in the area. What do you say to people who are coming to that decision?
Well, I think you can say a couple of things. One is really an observation that in the United States, and I won't say the world, but in the United States, there are really only a couple of paths that enable a person to progress from an adolescent to a young adult, to a young professional. One is the military, which is a small pipeline, and the other is traditional higher education, residential higher education, which is the space we're in. That's what we do. And there are other pathways, and they're incredibly valuable, and I don't diminish them a bit, but what we do is help that transition of a young person to grow into a young adult, and that's really important. You remember years ago, the idea was that we would have distance learning, and nobody would go to college. Everybody would go in their basement and go online and get a 4-year degree. Well, that didn't work out very well. All right, so we're still in business, as are a lot of our colleagues. And the reason is because if you think back to your time in college, your time as a 20-year-old, the most memorable thing for you, I pretty much guarantee, did not involve a classroom. The most important thing is the social interactions, the growing experience you had amongst your peers in that environment. That, as a developmental step, is really important, and I don't think it's going to go away. So this whole idea of going to college, I think, is important and enables people to transform into effective young adults. That's what we provide, and we provide it in a way that enables you to have a world-class exposure to ideas, to people who bring you different kinds of perspectives. I just think that's an incredibly important part of a maturation of an individual, and I don't think people are going to give that up. Now, we work hard on the cost side of that equation, scholarships, other elements that make college affordable. But again, coming to a place like Case Western Reserve, a research environment, small, intimate engagement with faculty, is transformative to the students who come to our university.
Last question for you today, Eric. You've already started celebrating the 200th anniversary. What else do you have planned?
Oh, we've got a whole bunch of stuff. So the highlight is our formal celebration, which is on June 3rd and 4th. It features a variety of programming. We're going to honor 20 of the individuals and organizations that have contributed to our history in significant ways. The Cleveland Orchestra is holding a special concert for us. I'm not sure they're going to play Happy Birthday, but they might.
They could. It's in the public domain.
And we'll have some good celebration. And then the crowning jewel will be opening the Interdisciplinary Science and Engineering building when it's completed in October, and that will help us pivot from reflection on our past 200 years to the contributions we're going to make in our next 200 years.
Case Western Reserve University President Eric Kaler, happy birthday on behalf of the institution, and thank you for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We'll take a quick break now, and when we come back, we'll learn about a historic speech given by abolitionist Frederick Douglass in Hudson back in 1854, a speech that still resonates with people today. This is The Sound of Ideas. I'm Stephanie Haney. We'll be right back. You're with The Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thanks for staying with us. The power of education and the ability of young people to reshape the world were among the broader themes of a historic commencement speech, one delivered by abolitionist Frederick Douglass in Hudson in 1854. He shared the speech at what was then known as Western Reserve College. Douglass used that moment to sharply debunk so-called scientific racism, the belief that different racial and ethnic groups have innately differing levels of physical, intellectual, and moral development that distinguish them as superior or inferior. Today, Douglas's words are getting renewed attention in an award-winning documentary that features students at the Western Reserve Academy College Prep Boarding School. The film, Just and Perfect, is being shown as part of this year's multi-city Black History Film Festival, which begins this weekend in Washington, D.C. Cece Payne, the writer and producer of the film, and Ayanna Graham Stefanum, the Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging for Western Reserve Academy, talked to us recently about the film and how the speech still connects to students today. We originally had this conversation on January 21st in advance of an event at the school commemorating the speech and a campus visit by a descendant of Frederick Douglass. That show was preempted by President Donald Trump's speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. So we wanted to give you a chance to hear that conversation now. Here it is. Now, Cece, the speech by Douglass in Hudson has received new interest because of the film. What drew you to that as a film subject?
Yeah, so Western Reserve Academy is gearing up to, or not even gearing up, at this moment we are in the midst of celebrating our 200th anniversary as a school. It is our bicentennial year. And so as we were preparing for this year, the community pulled some heads together and had a conversation and just said, what are the moments in our 200 years of history that we feel so particularly proud of? And there was a resounding attention to this moment where Frederick Douglass came to our campus in 1854. And as a community, we felt that we would be remiss to not take a moment to pause and revisit that speech as a community and use the anniversary as a moment to bring the speech into a bit more of a spotlight. As you mentioned, Stephanie, there are themes in the speech that are still relevant today. And so it was a great opportunity for us to take another opportunity, just as the students had done in 1854, to platform Douglass and his ideas to a broader audience. And it ended up being an incredible project. It was great to be able to work with students on it who themselves were really excited about the topic and the opportunity to bring it to a new audience. So that's kind of the story of how that all came to be.
Mm. And Cece, how did you first become aware of the speech that happened at that spot in Hudson in 1854? Was that through your work with the Western Reserve Academy?
Yes, it was actually. So I joined the Western Reserve Academy community about 4 years ago as an English teacher. And walking through the campus, I forget who exactly it was, but they were telling me a little bit about the story of Frederick Douglass coming to campus in 1854. And as an African American studies major, and an American studies major, I was so wowed by that for so many reasons. I thought to have been here in 1854, considering what was going on in the nation at that time, was just so profound. And it was a story that I had always been so fond of. It had made me have so much reverence for the community and just thinking about what kind of place this must have been to have been willing to make a decision like that back then.
And bringing it into present day, CC, having the students read the excerpts from the speech. We just saw that short clip there, which was very powerful. How did you decide on that as a way to bring the speech to life here in the current day? And I'm wondering if the students helped select the excerpts.
Oh, that's a great question. So that came about just from me sitting a bit with the original story itself. One of the most interesting wrinkles of this story to me was the fact that Douglass's presence happened because students themselves had asked for him to be on campus. Back in 1854, when Western Reserve Academy was Western Reserve College, we had these literary societies who were really committed to promoting open dialogue on campus. And so the students themselves had been the ones to reach out to Douglass and invite him to campus. And so it felt as though now in the year 2025, when we were working on this, it made sense to have students be the ones bringing these words to life again. And so the students didn't help me with selecting the excerpts. To that, I actually have to give a ton of credit to Michael Johnson, who is a member of our board of trustees here at Western Reserve Academy. He's a proud alum of Western Reserve Academy himself, and something that he's always been really proud of was the Douglass story. And so he was an immense help in going through the speech, which is 2 hours long originally, to identify some excerpts that we thought were particularly meaningful for people.
Now, Ayana, the film, of course, gives the speech new life with having the students recite those experts. And also having Douglas's great 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 grandson, Kenneth Morris, on campus later this week can further bring those words into the present day. Ayana, what is it that you're hoping students take from that event on Friday?
Hmm. Another great question. I think just zooming out and thinking from a bird's eye view, when I do this work and I collaborate with a number of people on campus for this, when we bring speakers to campus, I'm hoping that our speakers reach our students. I think today we're just seeing a time where we're consuming so much all the time so quickly, and our phones are competing for our attention all the time. And so bringing a speaker in, I'm always hoping that they will connect with the students and really teach them just the relevance of history and just the importance of being engaged citizens of the world. And so the film does a really great job of making that story feel relevant and has brought new life to the campus and its history. And so I'm hoping just with bringing Kenneth B. Morris to campus that that adds an additional layer to it and allows students to understand that we are all a part of history and it's living and breathing. And there are people who are still alive today and related to those who have done these great, powerful things. And I'm hoping, honestly, that it will inspire them to think about the voices that they have and their power to be change makers today. So that's really my hope.
Mm. Ayana, do you have any idea what you expect Kenneth Morris to say, what the substance of his conversation will be with the students?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit. We did a Zoom call, and there was a few of us on it beforehand just to talk through some ideas. We always want to make sure that our speakers have an understanding of the context of our school and our students. And what's very interesting about Kenneth, and he is a descendant of both Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington, which was something that we just randomly found out through our research, which is super cool. But he actually spoke a lot about wanting to also highlight the contributions of the women in his family who, he says that, Frederick Douglass would not be who Frederick Douglass is today without the support of his wife. And just there are a number of women that he spoke about wanting to also highlight the stories of. And so he's going to be delivering a presentation that really talks about, I think he quoted part of the title, The Power of One. And so I'm imagining that with his remarks that he will, touch base a little bit on that and really give a holistic picture of Douglass and those who supported the work that he did.
Now, Cece, that 1854 speech by Frederick Douglass and Hudson, it was incredibly groundbreaking for his era. Can you tell us a little bit about what made it so special in that moment?
Yes, I can. So in that era, what particularly stands out to me is that the nation was, um, I would say, kind of building towards the Civil War. 1854, in the month of May, actually, so 2 months before Frederick Douglass had arrived in Hudson, the Kansas-Nebraska Act had been signed, and that actually was going to pave the way for the legalization of the expansion of slavery westward. And so, 2 months after that act is signed into law, Frederick Douglass comes to campus, and he really wants to address the fact that while, the nation is at this moment where access to education and information is more than it might have been prior, he's trying to make it clear to the students that they, as educated citizens, have a responsibility with that education to make sure that they're not using it to justify the harm that's being done to a group of people in the United States. And so that was one of the moments that we really just wanted to lay clear for people, was understanding the stakes that Douglass was confronting with the Kansas-Nebraska Act becoming a new part of the way that the nation was running.
Cece, the film has been collecting awards last year at the Chagrin Documentary Film Festival, and it's been included in the 2026 Black History Film Festival. So, can you talk about that and what that means for this film and the students involved?
Oh, absolutely. Getting selected for the Chagrin Documentary Film Festival was an immense honor. Our students were really excited about it, especially because it is a local festival. I was able to take two of them with me for the premiere, and that was definitely a highlight of the two of their senior years for sure. When we set out to make this film, as much as it was a moment to commemorate and celebrate a milestone in our school's history, more than that, it was a moment to make sure that there is a new national audience for the content of the speech itself. And so it's been incredibly rewarding to see it be picked up on the film festival circuit and be getting these amazing opportunities to share the message with broader audiences. Like you mentioned, we just found out about being selected for the Black History Film Festival this year, which we're really excited about, particularly because it's a multi-city festival. So we'll get to screen the film in Miami, in Oakland, California, in Washington, D.C., and in Atlanta in February, which is really exciting for us now, looking about getting this film even broader than Ohio and getting it in front of some new eyes.
Mm-hmm. I want to let people know, for those just joining us, that we are having a conversation about an historic speech that was delivered by Frederick Douglass in Hudson in 1854. We're talking with filmmaker Cece Payne about the film Just and Perfect, which has students from the area reciting excerpts from that speech. We also have Ayanna Graham-Sifanum with us from the Western Reserve Academy, and we are talking about an event that's happening on Friday with a direct descendant of Frederick Douglass. Kenneth Morris will be here speaking in honor of that speech having taken place in 1854 here in Hudson. If you want to be a part of the conversation, the number is 866-578-0903, and the email is soi@ideastream.org. Ayanna, has the film reinvigorated interest in the work of Frederick Douglass beyond the 1854 speech in Hudson from what you're seeing?
I definitely think so. It has just been great for our community. Like I mentioned before, just it's one thing to read about it. It's another thing to get to relive it and experience it through the words of our students. And they performed the speech so passionately. And as Cece mentioned, two of those students are current seniors and the other two graduated last year. But the two seniors who were part of the film, they have just brought a lot of just life and passion into the school this year and are just excited to just be more engaged with the history and with this work and engage their peers. And I think the same would also be the same for our faculty as well. And so we're a pretty tight-knit community. We're a pretty small school. And I think the power of the film has definitely reverberated throughout it.
We'd like to play another clip from Just and Perfect at the end with a montage of students. So let's see that clip now.
Born as I was, in obscurity, a stranger to the halls of learning, environed by ignorance, degradation, and their concomitants, from birth to manhood. I do not feel at liberty
to mark out with any degree of confidence or dogmatism what is the precise vocation of the scholar. Yet this I can say,
as a denizen of the world, and as a citizen of a country rolling in the sin and shame of slavery, the most flagrant and scandalous that ever saw the sun.
Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest,
whatsoever things are just,
whatsoever things are pure,
whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good rapport, and if there be any virtue,
and if there be any praise,
think on these things.
Think on these things.
Think on these things.
Think on these things.
This is the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thanks for staying with us. Lent started this week. That's the 40-day reflective period observed by Catholics, and with that, another cherished community tradition has returned as well: fish fry season. In church halls and local breweries, Northeast Ohio diners will be filling plates with beer-battered cod, fried Lake Erie perch, pierogies, and coleslaw. Rather than try to swim upstream, we're giving into the hype and giving the people what they want with everything you need to know about fish fries in this installment of the menu. This is our bi-weekly look at Northeast Ohio's food scene in partnership with Cleveland Magazine. And joining me now with where to get your fish fry fix, what to expect, and why this tradition continues to bring people together year after year is Dylan Stewart, editor of Cleveland Magazine. Dylan, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back. If you want to be a part of this conversation, give us a call at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org or message us on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Maybe you have a favorite fish fry story or tradition or a spot or a preparation method that you think we should all know about. So let us know. All right, Dylan, we do think that fish fries are often happening at churches and nonprofit organizations. Why is that?
Well, of course, fish fry season lines up with Lent. So there is the Catholic tradition, and in Northeast Ohio, we have more than 600,000 Catholics. It's just over 20% of our population. So, that's really the basis of it. But I think, and of course, it's a community gathering place. It's tradition. It's an embrace of nostalgia. And it's a big fundraiser for a lot of the churches. In fact, most of them, it's the biggest fundraiser of the year. But I think it's grown so much beyond that into restaurants and other venues, and I think it's really truly because of that embrace of nostalgia. The food hits all the notes of what we love in the Midwest, especially coming out of winter. So I think it's a very inclusive tradition, despite its start with the Catholic community.
Inclusive for the pescatarians, of
Yes.
which I count myself among the pescatarian community. So let's talk about the types of fish commonly used in a fish fry. We are on a Great Lake here. Are people leaning into locally sourced fish?
Yes, some. Certainly walleye and perch are probably the most common local fish. In general, what you want is a mild white fish that is going to hold up really well when fried. And but in terms of the embrace of the local fish, you're going to see it at Woodstock Barbecue is one that we're really excited about. Brennan's Fish Fry is another one that does a great job with that. And you can't talk fish fry, local fish fry, without talking about Larder, the great Jeremy Umansky, who anytime you talk about food comes up quite a bit. But he does some really interesting things, especially with non-traditional fish like smelt and of course perch. But I've even seen him work with bass. So I don't really know what he's doing this year, and maybe I'm sure by today he does, but probably even earlier this week he didn't, because he's really finding whatever's fresh, whatever's most available.
Truly seasonal
Yes.
in that way. Is there a Northeast Ohio style of preparing fish for a fish fry that you're seeing people lean into?
I think, of course, we said embracing the whitefish, and that's cod, haddock, as well as the walleye and perch. And, I think typically you're just seeing the traditional, breaded, often beer battered. I did see a couple people doing like Great Lakes beer battered fish, IP, like local IPAs and stuff. So that's probably the most local preparation. But in terms of style, occasionally you'll get tempura. You'll see some baked or pan seared like salmon and stuff like that for people who kind of want to move away from the heavier greasy fried fish. But by and large, it's a pretty traditional fry.
Okay, this is good news for me. I'm a salmon girly. Okay,
great.
I like hearing that. Now, Dylan, I did some background research, some intel, and you are actually a fisherman.
Oh boy.
Are you a hunter and a chef when it comes to the fish you're fishing for?
So certainly I haven't embraced hunting yet. Around COVID, like many of us, looking for ways to find something to do, get outside. And so I started fishing in the spring, fly fishing with one of my buddies. And luckily he shepherded me along. So I'm very much a novice. I have much more enthusiasm than I have skill. And in the spring we're fly fishing for steelhead. That's really the big thing in the rivers as well as the lake. And then, in the summer I do a lot of bass fishing. But, year round, you can fish in Northeast Ohio. It's one of such a great fishery, and I think underrated. And, walleye and perch you can fish for all year. And even this was a really great year for ice fishing, which I have not embraced yet. But and even a lot of people in the fall were catching salmon, which is a really rare catch. So, again, I can't speak enough about our fishery here. I have not embraced eating it yet.
Okay.
I have focused on ethical catch and release practices, making sure the fish make it back home safely. But I'd like to at least try it once or twice eventually.
All right, so we know you're not cooking up the fish that you're catching necessarily, but say people are fishing and the fish aren't biting. You got to outsource your fish fry.
Sure.
Cleveland Magazine has a fish fry guide. Tell us where to find it and what people need to know about it.
Yeah, you can find it at clevelandmagazine.com/fish-fry, and probably any other URL you can think of and go to Google and things like that. But we have an interactive map with more than 80 fish fries there. So what's really cool is you can zoom in on your neighborhood and you find what's closest, and you can click on that and see exactly what their offerings are in terms of what type of fish, what types of sides, things like that. And then we also have an app that you can download. And that app features special deals and things like that from our local participating restaurants. So if you go to the App Store and go and search Fish Fry app, or Cleveland Fish Fry Guide, you're going to find it.
Okay, so I mentioned pierogies and coleslaw as a side dish. Are there other sides that are kind of typical that we can look for?
Yeah, you're often seeing French fries, mac and cheese, coleslaw, pierogies. You'll see some greens, whether that's sprouts or broccoli. And, I'm always looking for hush puppies too. I love some hush puppies. But, there's a lot of good stuff you can find.
Well, we always ask you this every week on the menu. Where are you eating this weekend, Dylan?
So, my favorite fish fry, I grew up going to St. Gabriel School in Menor Concord area. So I really do believe in that nostalgic returning to your community element of fish fry. They've really upped their game since I was a kid too, so it makes it even better. They have just about every style of fish that you can imagine, and they have amazing sides. And then from here, I'll definitely try to hit Pierogi Palace in Eastlake's one of my favorite on Vine Street. And I love what Crowley's has been doing. They're also in Eastlake on Vine Street, but they have locations all across Northeast Ohio, Croatian Irish bar. And so I really encourage people to check them out as well.
Okay. Well, really quick before we let you go here, Dylan, I want to let people know about a new collaboration that we're working on together, CLE Explained.
Yeah. So Stephanie's been joining us. The first one launched this week. And, I love the tagline we've been kicking around kind of behind the scenes of news you can use. And, this time we talked about municipal taxes, and we have so many other exciting ideas. And, it's really that blend of newsiness, but also service. And, it's all you. You do an incredible job.
Well, thank you, Dylan. I didn't pay him to say that, but I won't be mad that he did. We appreciate you being with us. You can find CLE Explained on the Instagram accounts for Cleveland Magazine, myself, and also The Sound of Ideas. Dylan Stewart, editor for Cleveland Magazine. Thanks for being with us for the menu.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that wraps up the show today. If you missed any part of the show, you can hear a rebroadcast tonight at 9 on 89.7 WKSU. You can also catch every episode of The Sound of Ideas wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. To get the last word on today's topics, you can email us at soi@ideastream.org. Now, yesterday we talked about the long-standing history of politics and the Olympics and the restrictions placed on athletes sharing their views during the games. John wrote in, "It's sad that our Olympians have so little faith in the leadership of our country, but truth to tell, they are voicing the opinion of many people from around the entire world." John, thank you for the perspective. Marvin also wrote in, "The Olympic Games themselves are already inherently a political statement. They were established to bring countries together despite differences. There couldn't be a more appropriate place for political statements." Marvin, thank you for your perspective. Now, tomorrow on The Sound of Ideas, it's the Friday Reporters Roundtable with host Mike McIntyre. This week, he's joined by IdeaStream's Matt Richmond and Kabir Bhatia, and Karen Kassler joins from the State House News Bureau in Columbus. I want to take a moment now to thank our audience for a great turnout at this week's Sound of Ideas community tour, which focused on artificial intelligence. Please take a moment to fill out our survey if you attended. You can find that at ideastream.org/SOI. Let us know how we did if you came on out. And you can join us in 2 weeks for the next community tour. We'll be talking about the future of Burke Lakefront Airport at the airport. We'll hear why Cleveland Mayor Justin Bibb says it's time for the airport to close so the city can develop that 450 acres of prime lakefront real estate. We'll also hear from City Council and learn what a pilot thinks about the proposal. That is March 4th at 6 p.m. at Burke Lakefront Airport. It's free to attend, and yes, the parking is free too. We just need you to register online to do that and come see us. ideastream.org/SOI. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for keeping the conversation going. Mike McIntyre is with you tomorrow, and I will see you back here on Monday on The Sound of Ideas. Have a great weekend, everybody.